I'm going to call the meeting to order. It is now 5:31. Guidelines from Governor Inslee's office in response to the COVID-19 outbreak and the Open Public Meetings Act allows in-person meetings to occur but are limited to 25% capacity in the meeting room. Those who cannot attend in person this evening are joining us via Zoom webinar. We welcome everybody. And now if we could recite the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And now I'm going to ask for a roll call to confirm attendees. Director Ginny Gronwald.
Here. Sorry.
Director Rob Perkins.
Here. Phone's waving.
Director Julie Bocanegra.
Here.
Director Rachel Rogers.
Here.
Superintendent Mike Merlino.
Here.
Administrative Assistant Lori Stroll.
Here.
Thank you. Next, we need to adopt tonight's agenda. Do I have a motion?
I move that we adopt tonight's agenda as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, now I need to receive a motion to go into executive session to review the performance of a public employee or employees.
So moved.
Second.
This executive session will last 30 minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, did you get that?
I got it. You just got to take a vote.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we will go into executive session and be back in about 30 minutes, unless otherwise.
That corner.
That way.
Okay, we'll reconvene. I move that the board accept the recommendation of the superintendent to separate employment of the employees listed on the consent agenda under non-disciplinary dismissal for the reasons provided by the superintendent, and that the chief operations officer provide appropriate written notice to the employees listed on the consent agenda under non-disciplinary dismissal of the board's action.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Now I'd like to take a motion to approve the superintendent's consent agenda.
I move that we approve the superintendent's consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Now we will, it is now 6:06. We will go into a short recess followed by a quarterly bond update.
I'm on. First off and foremost, thank you again for the opportunity to come tonight and present. I will try to be short and brief. I know you folks are busy and there's a lot of things going on, so it's hard to believe there's been another 3 months since we've done this last. I know you guys have been out to the site and you've seen a lot of work that's been going on out there, so there's a lot to report tonight. Again, I'll try to be brief. A lot of good news to report tonight. I don't have much, if any, difficult or hard things or bad news to report. Over the last 3 months, again, it's been, as you know, more than anyone, there's been a tremendous amount of challenges out there, whether it's procurement of materials and challenges for procurement in delays, obviously the COVID and the vaccination and all those things, but we've managed through good leadership to continue to move forward and power through those, and keeping our projects on budget and on schedule. And a lot of that's just with good communication. I think the board and the executive team and Sue and her leadership and her team just having good communications, we've been able to get a lot of work done. I made a few adjustments to the presentation, and we'll make sure we send that out to you so you have the final one. We added a little bit more detail from Friday's report. Overall, I'm here to report projects are doing well. All projects are on budget, on schedule, and the quality continues to be great. I think this is pretty informal. If anything comes up as I go through the report, feel free to yell at me and I'll try to answer your question. If not, I'll get back to you with the right answer. And then is there any questions kind of before we dive into the report? All right. I'm going to try this tricky thing. So we'll hit on schedule overview real briefly, project overview real briefly. It's in attachments. If you folks want to reference that, feel free to. And then we'll kind of get into the meat of tonight is just diving into the projects. And then at the end, if there is any questions, go from there. Schedule. I think we have in your package, you'll have each individual schedule that will kind of go through each project specifically. We've also got the roll-up. Again, it's small. It's trying to incorporate. This is all the 11 projects that we committed. It doesn't to the board. It doesn't account for all the capital renewals and all the other miscellaneous stuff that we're working on out there. So we're in the process of updating this to include all the new additional projects. So that's for reference as well. Budget. I think you folks have had an opportunity to look at this. These budgets reflect moving some funds around to balance some of the projects. It also, if you remember, we went through these project budgets and we identified some savings that identified those 4 additional projects, which we'll talk about tonight. So I don't think, unless there's any questions on that, feel free to review that and circle back around with me as needed. We are starting to go back through that. We're trying to find some additional funds now that we've got further down through the projects and there's less risk and less contingency requirements. So over the next week, 2 weeks, we'll have an opportunity to sit down with Mike, his team, and Sue and their team to present some potential opportunities to see what else is in those project budgets. We continue to meet bi-monthly, and I mean we meet. We go through these on a daily basis, weekly basis to reconcile to make sure our budgets align with the district's budgets. We meet quarterly with Sue and Bev and their team, and we're actually meeting this Friday to go through that and just assure that things are moving along and the processes are looking good and our budgets are aligning with Evergreen's budgets reconciled. Projects, we'll go through the elementaries real quick, kind of give a brief update of where we are in the ASC, the Legacy, and then Mountain View, Y East, Heritage. Go through just briefly some of the capital renewals in the athletic fields and some of the other miscellaneous projects. And then we'll go through kind of some of where we are on some of those additional projects that we noted previously. Ellsworth and Marion, I think, is pretty much the same update. We have Dan, the senior project manager, here if we have any questions or clarifications, but we're really just planning to oversee end of October out there. We're working on ongoing punch list items. We're working on kind of the project closeout, construction closeout, HVAC commissioning, and then some scopes we are still awaiting materials to be delivered just because of procurement issues that we've clearly identified, and we're communicating with the staff accordingly on realistic expectations on when those would be anticipated. So I think Ellsworth and Marion are and I think a lot of folks were out there for the ribbon cutting, so they had you guys had an opportunity to take a look at that. Burton. So this is the existing site, kind of overlay site plan that is currently being built out there. If anyone's been out there lately, there's the majority, if not all of them, except for a couple modular portables, are removed from the site. These are a couple current photos. You can see they're really identifying the classroom as the first scope that they're, you can see footings and foundations and a lot of site work being done out there. So LSW and the Woodburn construction team continue to do a good job out there for us. As you remember, we have a mid-year turnover for that, so we have a substantial completion end of October and a move-in winter break of 2022. So that's going to help in a lot of ways. It's going to eliminate a lot of the summer work and kind of but it is also going to create some challenges to move during the school year. So we've already started working on kind of what moving is going to look like during that time, what FFE is going to look during that time. So we're continuing to work through that with the stakeholders. Unless there's any questions on that, well, Mill Plain is currently in design. It's very similar. Obviously, it's a prototypical to the other schools, so we understand the process very well. We're still on schedule so we've gone and submitted for land use process. We are still planning by end of this year, first of next year, to submit for permit and go out to bid. And we are anticipating to have enough permit comments that we can incorporate those as we go out to bid, which is always ideal. And traditionally, things go so fast, we don't always have that opportunity. But in this case, we're confident that we're going to capture some of those building permit comments into the bid documents, which equals, buying those on bid day is always much better than buying those through a change order request. So the construction will start June of 2022 and then wrap up fall of 2023 for that following school year. I don't think we have much or many concerns with Mill Plain. I think we built the budget based on what we would anticipate. I know that over the last couple months, 3, 4, 5 months, there's been a volatile cost have been very volatile, and I think it's starting to flatten out, and so we're feeling very comfortable and confident with where our budgets are for there.
And just as a reminder, we're going to be using the old image as the Hauser School for that year. And so so that we analogous to what we did with Marion, and that worked really well.
Yeah, so home choice is there now, and we'll touch on home choice later in the presentation, but like Dan said, that'll be the Hauser School once home choice moves back into their location. ASC, again, every time I'm here, it's a beautiful building. I'm sure you guys have already started to enjoy some of the amenities in the facility. We just received today our final permit, our final certificate of occupancy. So we've been kind of the last 2-3 months working through all the city requirements. So we did receive that today. We continue. I would say we're 99% done with the punch list. There's still a few things that we're working through. Contract closeout in the next 30 to 45 days. We'll have a recommendation to. Go ahead.
Did they resolve the issue here that was going on in how loud it was
In
In the TV studio?
Yeah.
So we have 3 acoustical issues here. One was being up in room 330. I think it's
Bobby's
Bobby's
office.
room. It sounds like there's an airplane flying through there. So that's one issue.
We
The
were having
TV
that here,
studio
too.
was another issue. And then in here, you're continuing to have.
You can hear it right now.
So we've identified that. We've had an acoustical engineer out to the site. To answer your question, the TV studio has been addressed. We have a document that shows that it meets the specs and it meets the acoustical levels. So that's been addressed. We're working through resolving Bobby's probably within the next 2 weeks. And then we're shooting to get the issue here identified within the next 2 weeks. Maybe
Okay.
the next time that there might be a break where there's no board meetings or there's no, this facility isn't being occupied.
Okay.
So to
Thank
answer your
you.
question, yes, that has been addressed. We're still working through a couple of the other items. Overall, other than some of those acoustical things and some of the heating challenges, overall, I think the building's operating
Great.
very well. So
Thank you.
we'll continue to push on that. Emmerich has been Emmerich and the whole entire team, Emmerich and GBD have been great through the closeout process. They're really working hard to close this Some of the site stuff, we've had some challenges with and we continue to work through, and so. Legacy transition and Hollingsworth, similar update as ASC. We're working through punch lists, working on contract closeout. HVAC out there, we've had some challenges with the heating and the cooling, so we're working very closely with the commissioning agent and the mechanical contractors out there. And then again, just waiting. There are some materials that just haven't been shipped to the site, i.e. Some window shades and a couple other things that we continue to push on, and we're communicating to the staff accordingly. They've been great to work with. I think when things come up, we've been able to address them. We actually just had a meeting earlier today with kind of setting the expectations on additional scope and additional wants and additional needs, kind of clarifying what those expectations are. So all in all, that site is, and I don't know, you folks have all had an opportunity to get out there. That's another, just an absolute beautiful building, and it's a joy to see the kids and them use that for what it is. So I included in here, I don't think it came into your package, there was a couple really neat articles. One from the Columbian on Dorothy Hollingsworth, which was great. So if you haven't had a chance to read it, click on that link and take a look at it. It's great. And then there was Channel 6 News. Other than him butchering the name of Evergreen, he thought this was Evergreen School District, or no, I forget. He butchered the name.
He
half the
talked a
time.
lot about the Winco across the street.
Yeah, he did talk a lot about Winco.
Oh,
So
nice.
if he's listening, I apologize. But
Maybe he was hungry.
It's a really neat article. It's a really neat little segment. So take a look at the link if you'd like. But I threw it in there. Mountain View, obviously our largest project. I'm sure you folks have had an opportunity to swing by. I know that we've identified, and I forgot to mention it on the first page, but November 3rd, we're going to do a site visit out at Mountain View and then also at Y East. So looking forward to getting you guys on the site and take a look. It is a massive structure, but Skanska continues to really just push that along. And for how big of a project is, the weekly meetings, they're just they're going really well. So Mike and the couple other folks had an opportunity a couple weeks ago to walk the site. I think pretty impressive what's going on out there. A lot to be proud of. I listed a couple of the construction activities out there that's going. We're still on schedule to turn that building over August 2022. Maybe I can show this. Kind of this site, so this building still plans to be turned over August 2022. There is some site work that needs to be done. So essentially when kids come back fall of 2022, this part will be done along with this bus loop. They're currently saying that it potentially might not be done, but we're planning that this is done along with all the building is done, ready to be turned over. And then this site work will be done over this demolition, and site work will be done over the summer. Unfortunately, we just can't turn this student parking over until November. So there's going to be 45 to 60 days without student parking, and we've already started to work with transportation and with the staff to try to identify that. They're using this space to be able to get the traffic in, to demolish it and get in and out. So we're working, we're having good communication with the district, or with the staff level, to communicate that outward. But
Are you making provisions for student parking in a temporary area? Is that what I'm looking at?
Yeah, I think we're still working through what that's going to look like, and we're trying to work through with worst case scenario if this bus loop isn't going to be able to be done come end of August. So I don't have an exact answer right now, but we're continuing to work with the appropriate folks to make sure we have a good game plan of what that looks like. We're confident Skanska's not going to tell us right now. As we get closer, they will, so that we can plan accordingly. But we're still confident that we're going to be able to turn that over.
I think the main concern would be the number of students who might drive to school and are Running Start students
Yep.
and/or Cascadia students who cannot park at the locations where they're being bused to.
Yeah,
And there'll be a smaller number than the total, but it's going to fill the streets along the sides, and
yeah.
so there's stuff
I
to-
agree 100%. So we'll put together as we get a little bit closer, we'll put together a real solid game plan of how we're going to make that work. And we'll work with the city, we'll work with the transportation folks, and we'll work with the high school administration to make sure that it might not be a perfect, but it's going to be the best case scenario. So I'll make a note, and we'll circle back, and we'll circle back around with you personally and make sure you guys are in the loop of what our game plan is there. So it's just it's a huge project to turn around. Even 24 months sounds like a long time, but it's just such a massive
I think
project.
the
So,
day we were there, what they say, there were over 200 construction workers on the site.
yeah, we right now on an average have 200 to 225 people on site. So, yeah, it's a
It's a
massive.
massive structure when you walk through it. It's
So-
huge.
But we got Dave. Dave, the superintendent out there, is amazing. He's done this before. We've worked with him a ton. He has a very we have a very good game plan to finish. He's just not going to show all his cards right now. So we over the next 45 days will come up with a more detailed game plan of how that's going to look come fall of 2020, 2022 for those students and parking and all that. But that isn't a surprise. That's something that we've been talking about for this whole duration. So,
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys take a look. I was gonna bring up. There's that time lapse. It's pretty cool to see the progress. I know I'm trying to get through this, so I'm not gonna bore you guys, folks, with it. But take a look at it. It's pretty neat to see the progress. Unless you want me to run through it real quick. Go through it.
Take a minute, Mom.
Okay.
It's pretty cool.
It is
Yeah,
super.
I'd like
cool.
to see it.
That's equivalent to 4.5 elementary schools for third classes.
So on the left, you'll see that's where the auditorium is. On the far left, you'll see that's where the gymnasium. This closest building to us is the CCTE. On the back side is kind of the admin, and then the right is the classroom wing.
You can see the footings get exposed and then they get covered back up again. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, we.
There they go, now they'll get buried in.
Kind of like watching that Time Machine movie from
Yeah.
the 60s.
Yeah, so the majority, if not all of it, the majority of, not all of it, is the roof is on. Some of that is temporary roof, just so that we can move forward. But I would say 80% of the permanent roof is installed, and the other 20% is just temporary in place. So when on November 3rd, you'll see, and you'll be pretty amazed with all the stuff that's going on out there. So.
Concrete and steel construction.
Yeah,
Steel
the
beams.
gymnasiums and the auditoriums are tilt concrete construction.
Nice.
So here's a couple other views. That's just a still view. I think that's from the north. A couple other kind of shots here. You can see the classrooms. Actually, next week is when we're starting to drywall, which is pretty incredible. So we've met with IT and maintenance out there to make sure like the plugs and everything before we start covering is what is at folks' expectations. So there's the auditorium theater. So yeah, things are really moving fast out there. And it's exciting. So Y East, again, a lot of stuff going on out there. Malum and Todd continue to do a great job. No issues that we see from a budget standpoint or a schedule standpoint, if you remember right. We are turning that building over a little earlier. We've got our substantial completion April 21st, which is going to really help, not because Mountain View is such a large project and Y East is such a large project, to kind of split up some of that FFE and some of that moving and some of those other things that we won't have to do concurrently. So we strategically did that. We're gonna have a really busy summer of 2022 out there, taking that building down, doing the site work, but it's nothing that we haven't done before. And Todd Construct, we have a really good game plan, and Dan and the RNC team continue to just beat over everyone's head how important that summer is going to be. So I think we have a good plan. We identified a few construction activities that are going on out there. Again, you'll be amazed looking at these photos here how fast things are going, but also how much they'll change when we're out there on November 3rd. So this is that. I think this is from the west looking to the east at that courtyard. There's that courtyard bridge. There's a classroom. A lot of the classroom wings have on the south are drywalled out, and they're kind of progressing from the south to the north. So right, oh shoot, pushed the wrong button, sorry. Wow, my apologies. So yeah, they're kind of working from the south here to the north. You can see basically all of it's roofed out. Either it's permanent roofing or it's the temporary roofing in place, which is great. They just kind of finished this area up here is kind of the theater side, and then we've got the athletics down here on the south. So this is the existing gym. All of this scope of work over the summer of 2022 is just a critical finish area. Any questions?
Anybody feeling nostalgic about that old building had better drive past before summer.
Yeah, get your photos in quick. So
'Cause I drove past it the other day, last week, and couldn't tell where the old gym was by the look of it.
yeah.
It's been so changed. And
Yeah, because this
integrated.
area right here just covers up the front of the old gym, or the
Right.
existing gym, so.
You're gonna love this
Any-
school too, it's beautiful.
Anything?
Oh, yeah, I'm excited to see it.
Music rooms are huge.
Yeah, they're nice.
So nice.
Yeah, if you've driven by during the summertime, the parking lot that's in the front of the building, that's all brand new. So that will be part of the new parking lot. So in some ways, Adam talked about how at Mountain View, they've got a lot more parking lot that they've got to do anyway because of the more students.
Right.
But they couldn't get any part of it done ahead of time.
Yeah.
Whereas we were able to get about roughly half of the parking lot that we're going to end up with done this year, so that it makes it easier for us next summer. That second summer scramble is going to be, we're going to be in better shape.
Yeah. Heritage, ton of work going on out at Heritage if you've been by there. So we've got the new fields that are going on, and then we've got the addition, and then we've got the music room, and then some of the summer scope that we got done out there. So happy to report, when we bid that out, we had some real concerns with the modernization scope of work, getting it done, because we only have that 10-week wonder to get it done. So Forma Construction has done an absolute fantastic job for us. Actually, this is our first project that we've worked with them, and they've been really great to work with. They hit a home run on that phase 1 of the modernization. We're working weekly to plan. We've got a few lessons learned that we're going to incorporate into that 1B phase 2 that'll be summer of 2022. The new construction is really taken off. I do have there's some masonry going on. There's a lot of stuff going on. I've got a video that we can go through really quick. It's a lot shorter. You can see this is just the classroom edition. I don't have anything on the music edition, but this was probably done as of maybe a week and a half ago. So it's pretty current. We had some challenges, just to report. We did have some challenge with the county of getting a building permit. So we are working with Forma, again, they're being great to work with, on identifying some overtime and then also providing them a little bit of time on the back end. We're working with the hyphen folks, the furniture folks, the moving folks to make sure that we're not squeezing that timeline on the back end, that we're going to be unsuccessful, that we still have some contingencies in there. But we are working to give them some days back just because of that permit process. I'm happy to report we do have all of our permits now, but over the last couple, 3 months, it was a lot of work and hard work from a lot of people to get that permit. So there's a couple photos. Maybe I can just, so obviously right here is where that phase 1 scope, we ended up getting majority, if not all of this. Oh, we got all, can't hit them all. Here, I'll do this. How about this? So we were able to get all of this done this summer, which was our goal. We have a couple other little areas around this, that's the modernization. This scope right here that's pink is all summer of 2022, so we're working with kind of the stakeholders, the IT folks, all the different players to make sure that that's as smooth as possible. And then obviously the new classroom edition is here, which will be open fall of 2022, and then the similar timelines as the music room. We anticipate that being done earlier just because of the size, but it's still on that same timeline. Just a couple photos to see some of the progress. That's the music room right there, the music edition. So yeah, later in the presentation I'll hit on the fields, but there's a lot of scope going on out there. So working with Derek Garrison and their team out there, they've been absolutely fantastic to work with. So I think capital renewals and the athletic fields, I think these projects really get lost. There's a ton of work that we're doing, not we, just the team in general, that are the small ones that are very impactful to the district and to the community. I did attach Sue's spreadsheet, so when I send this revised matrix or this revised report out, you can reference that as needed. But it just identifies all the different projects. And it's a really kind of mind-blowing of all the stuff that's going on. 2021 projects, for the most part, are complete. We've had a couple mechanical just because of COVID and some material delays that we've had some challenges with some mechanical ones that we're working with the staff. We're working on temporary solutions, and we're working through those. We anticipate over the next 30 to 45 days pretty much being those, for the most part, wrapped up and being used as their intended design was. 2022 projects, we've already Sue and I sat down, had a really good meeting to identify what that next 2022 looks like. So we've put together a plan, a good game plan to be successful. And so we'll be working on, right now we're starting to prioritize the ones that require design or long lead time, i.e. mechanical systems. We're hearing mechanical equipment is just incredibly long lead. So we're working with the engineers and the architects to identify those so that we can get bid packages out even earlier than what we would typically do. So end of this year, first of next year is when our goal is to get a lot of those long lead items out on the street, so that we can all be more successful and make sure that we just have such a small window with those capital renewals to get that scope of work done. So we've identified those. I did hit on just a couple of the CCTE projects that have been ongoing. One at Evergreen High School, the GIC program, I think we have a good plan to open that facility fall of 2022. So we've been working with Justin and his team, and so we have a good plan there. And then just a couple of little things that have gone out at Union and other sites. So a couple things. So Heritage and Evergreen are under construction right now for the fields. Heritage, again, we were challenged. It's in the county for some permits. We have received all our permits to date. We are pushing very hard. I think the biggest challenge is the tennis courts, that we didn't have a permit, so we couldn't build that and do the structure to that. So we still have a game plan to finish. We're just limited with weather and needing it to be under a certain temperature to be able to put that surface on there. So our goal is by middle of November to have that done, and then through the end of the year we'll finish up the fields. Next week we should be turning over the varsity softball to Coast, and they'll start installing the field out there. The lighting has already commenced. Probably within the next 10 to 15 days we'll be done with that scope of work. And then they'll be working, we're going to do this one counterclockwise, so they're going to go up to the varsity baseball and then work their way back around. So we're still on schedule for end of this year, being able to turn that over for kids to use spring of 2022. Couple photos you can see. These were taken about a little over a week ago, so there's actually been quite a bit more progress. Evergreen, never a dull moment out at Evergreen High School. The fields, it's very adjacent to neighbors, and they've been great to work with. So I give them my phone number. They call me direct, and we try to work through solutions. We're trying to work with our contractor that was the lowest responsible bidder out there to be more proactive and less reactive, and so we continue to do that on a daily basis. The field lighting is complete out there. Probably within the next 30 to 45 days it'll be commissioned and be operational. We're having to still get some main power out there. They started right here at the varsity softball, and they're working clockwise, so they'll Coast to Coast has started here. If you've been out there, you can see that the field's starting to turn green, so it's starting to really come together. The up above at the football field, the fields are all graded. They're all ready to go for field turf to start installing turf once Bynum, which is doing the track surfacing, they've started out there. They need about 12 to 15 more days depending on the weather. They can only work when it's the right weather, it's dry, this and that. So I would guess within the next 2 to 3 weeks they'll be done with that. And then we actually switched the schedule up just because it got a little bit later than we wanted. The fields we can do later in the year. The track we're pretty limited. After middle of November it gets really difficult. So we still have a plan to be successful out there to turn those over end of this year, and then have those ready for the kids to be playing on those spring of 2022 as well. So all in all, it's been a lot of work, but it's been great, and I think you folks are gonna, and the community is gonna love what they have out there. So I do have a couple photos. That again is that top one right here is out at the varsity softball. It's kind of that southeast location. This is the track that they've kind of got the first surfacing on. You can see it out there now. It was out there earlier today, and it's actually red now. So they've started the process. So any questions on that? So want to give you a quick little update on the additional large projects that was approved a couple, 3-4 months back. Transportation has been ongoing. We continue to have stakeholder meetings on a weekly basis. Within the next couple weeks, we'll have some options and some schemes. So what we've tasked the designers to do is listen to the stakeholders, identify the needs, but then remember that we have a $7.2 million budget, and so we are prepared to present over the next couple weeks to the executive team kind of some different options and some different schemes of, if you do this, it's here. If you do this, it's here. And so I am currently working on looking through some of the budgets to potentially identify some dollar amounts that you might be able to, and first and foremost, we're not going to put, RNC is not going to put our projects at risk, other projects at risk. So we're going to make sure that what we present to the executive team, that there's been thought, and we've put a lot of thought into it to make sure that we're not putting ourselves at risk. So we'll finalize those options probably within the next 2 weeks. Our project schedule has shifted just a touch, and only because it is now, we're planning to, let me back up. So through that process, we've gone through some master planning to try to identify, okay, we have a field going here, we have a transportation facility, we have an elementary school, existing elementary school. So we've gone through an extensive master planning to say, what does that site need? We've kind of looked at it as transportation, maintenance, and a warehouse. Through that process, these are just a couple examples to show you kind of a graph of how we kind of went through it. We went through tons of options and iterations of how we came to or how we got to where we were. So the intent is to keep the structure and keep transportation going, because we can't just shut down transportation for a year. So to use some of the existing Burton School to expand that to the east, and then keep the activity going at transportation, and then identify it that route. When we've gone through this master planning, the site actually isn't as big as we thought when we were going into it. So it doesn't, we're designing it, and we'll plan for, if it ever is expanded, to set the buildings up and set the parking lots up in a way that gives future opportunity to expand. But the site does start to get small when you start adding maintenance, and you start adding warehouse, and you start adding the transportation facility. So we've gone through that process. Again, these are a couple of just the schemes. Again, they're just drafts, but we'll have something like this associated with a budget, associated what the projections would be, and then some identified costs where we could bring those funds from. So, any questions on transportation? It's GBD has done an absolute fantastic job listening to the stakeholders, but also reminding, probably just reminding where we are and how much money that we have to spend. But we went through this process, and we want to provide you with an opportunity with the right information to make an informed decision. So we went through that process, and we're excited over the next couple weeks to move forward. So
They partnered with Akana, who's a native-owned business, because we've been putting in our RFPs now on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And Akana is actually, they specialize in transportation facilities, and they've been really instrumental in this process as well. We have some underground storage tanks that were, buried back in the 50s and 60s, and then redone in the 90s, so they're right at the end of life, about 30 years. As long as the tank infrastructure is okay, we may be able to just do the above ground. So we've been really kind of working with them on doing some testing. It does show up as suspect on ecology's list, and we don't want to leave that suspect benzene and petroleum in the groundwater. We want to rule that out. But we're also looking at how much real estate does an above ground tank take. We want to go to underground. What's the future of EV, electric buses? Is that a future? So there's a lot of different rabbit holes that we're trying to uncover everything so that we know what we're getting into. But I would recommend moving forward with the testing, just to kind of get rid of that stigma that it's suspect. When they buried the tanks back in the 90s, they would have had to have site testing done before they closed it all up again. So we're kind of working with Akana to help us. They have an environmentalist on board to help us with some of those potential risks.
Those are the fuel tanks, the current
Yeah.
underground fuel tanks?
I think they're like 20,000 gallon pieces.
They're like right in this area.
There's 5 of them altogether.
yeah.
Is there flex in the budget to build electric charging capacity into the transportation facility?
We will have to, as part of the new code for employee parking. And then on the bus, we've actually been kind of talking to Lyndall about what is the future look. He thinks it's still kind of a ways out, but we do have the opportunity with all the covered structure to do solar arrays that would then be able to, we have the battery capacity to be able to power the buses. We have been talking about that as well. I think Lyndall thinks it's further out than what, I think, we like to transmission, or it really changes the number of mechanics, and, you know, you basically need batteries, tires, and windshields.
They are simpler machines, that's for sure.
Yep.
Yeah, and what we've learned going through this process is how much, you know, as we're working with RLB, a cost estimator, to put together some rough order of magnitude costs that we can present, we've learned how expensive just the site in general is. There's a lot of site costs, so we're trying to work through with the design team and the stakeholders to identify some of those areas that maybe we can keep as is and build adjacent, so that we don't have to just tear asphalt out, put new asphalt in. And maybe that could be a future project. So we're working through all these different schemes to be able to present a plan, a good plan to move forward. Because we are,
Well, my basic question was around whether there was planning for an electrical charging infrastructure as far as, you know, like amperage capacity onto the site from the network, from the electrical network, that kind of thing.
yeah, we haven't got into those details as of right now. It's kind of just big picture schematic of how we're going to get, when we do get into, into more of the design, we'll have to get into a lot more detail. But as of right now, we haven't got into that much detail. So yeah, that's transportation. There's been a ton of work that's gone on to get where we are, and we're excited to present that and then move into that design phase depending on what direction we're given. So we're hoping for early November, the first couple weeks in November, no later than mid-November, to kind of hit into the design. The other one is the CCT at the existing Legacy, the STEM program. I just put up a kind of a rough schedule. We went through a selection process. We got a lot of submittals, and we selected, as you know, Malum Architects. We've only had a couple meetings with those stakeholders. We're really trying to identify roles and responsibilities and what those core teams and who's on the design advisory team. This is going to be a very unique and exciting project, but it's going to be a challenging project too, because there's not a lot of, it's not like just building a typical elementary school or a typical middle school. So we have the rights, Justin and his team and Matt Johnson, and we've started to really put together a good team that can help us get the right information to Malum, so that Malum can understand what the intent of that program is going to be. So we've just started. We had our first kickoff meeting 2 weeks ago, and we're meeting tomorrow, and we're moving forward on that. Music rooms, we haven't really done much, if anything, on that. I think we're really trying to gauge the transportation and the legacy projects until we really engage those projects. I would anticipate over the next 60 days or so that we will really kind of start digging into those and start master planning what those look like for Union and Evergreen High School. And then home choice, I just listed this on there. So the existing home choice is at the old Image right now. We are in design right now with LSW Architects. We're meeting with the staff. We've met with them multiple times. We're meeting with them tomorrow, actually, to present kind of the progress that we've made. We are on schedule to have a bid package out, or submit for permit end of this year, and have a bid package out first of next year, and then start that construction March of 2022, and then wrap up August of 2022 for staff to be able to move from the old Image back into that facility, so that Mill Plain can move from their facility over to Image. So getting a lot of use out of that Image Elementary School. So those are just some timelines that we identified. It's very draft form, but essentially at the existing home choice, there's some tenant improvement type scopes over here, some improvements on the site right here just for access, for drop off and for staging. And then on the east side of the main entry, we've got a small cover play that will be similar to the elementary schools, just at a smaller scale. Some playground equipment. We haven't really figured out what that looks like. And then we've identified on the land use process this future portable, so that we've heard from the existing home choice folks that that program continues to grow. So we've identified that in the land use process so that land use process can take up to 6 to 8 months. So identifying it in there so that if we ever decide to build that, it's just a matter of a building permit versus a land use process. So we don't have to do anything at this time, but we have the opportunity to, or we have the flexibility in the future to grow as needed. That's all I have. I know I threw a lot at you. I know there's a lot of stuff going on out there, but, and again, I'll get you this updated report so that you have some more of that content that you can reference. Any questions, clarifications?
Guys have been busy.
Yeah, it's been really good. It takes it takes an army to do what's going on out there. So kudos to the board on getting us information and direction as we need, and then the executive team and Sue and her team. We work with a lot of different school districts, and as long as we provide you folks with the right information, we get decisions made very quickly, which in line helps us stay on schedule and budget and all the others. So I appreciate your time. Sue, you got anything?
We appreciate you too, Adam.
Yes, we
Yes,
do.
thank you.
You guys are doing
Appreciate it.
an awesome job.
I would just say appreciate Adam, Dan, the whole team, Sue, obviously, I can't remember where it was, but one of the buildings when we were visiting, I was talking to one of the contractors, and they specifically said that they like working with Evergreen because of the people that they work with and the responsiveness to the questions, and they get things done. It's a good experience. So really fortunate to have all of you, Ali, Rick, Sue, all the folks that are part of this, and obviously everybody in the buildings that are impacted so significantly by everything that happens. But it's been extremely successful, and you're going to love these buildings when you go
Oh,
see
I know,
them.
I'm excited.
2 weeks or so, I think
Yep,
it
yep.
is. It's really nice. So thank you very much.
Yep. And I think we're starting at Y East first at 3 to 4, and then from 4 to 5 we'll head over to Mountain View. So we've got the contractors all lined up and ready to tour us around.
And then whenever we go visit Heritage again in the future, we just got to make sure the weather's nice so we can play football out on the field again like we did the last time.
I walk
Yeah.
by there every single morning, and I keep thinking for a while, it just looked like a pile of dirt here, and then a pile of dirt over there. And
We-
then finally, it looks like things are happening.
Yeah, it's coming together.
There's lots out there now.
If you walk by there, I a couple weekends ago I walked down behind Legacy on the trail so you could kind of oversee where the fields are going in down below. And whether it's music, whether it's the academic program, whether it's athletics, whether it's theater, whether it's the auditorium, I mean, the opportunities and the facilities for our students and our children are so amazing.
Yeah.
It just is beautiful down the hill. To think about, Victoria Rob's been around for a while, Julie. Thinking about the eyesore that was the trees on the side of that hill, and then the fact that it was just like a concrete field or whatever it was down below, thinning those trees out so that you can walk. It's a path for people to walk through, and then to have these fields built in, and the lighting. Obviously it's impactful for the neighbors, no question. I mean, they've had a field behind them forever, but the lighting on these fields, I was driving by, they were on, and then I drove back by and they were off, and it wasn't significantly different because they're so focused down on the field. They're not these lights broadcasting out. But our students, it's just so awesome what the community did, what the board did to support putting it on the ballot. So it's just really awesome.
Yeah.
It's just amazing thinking about the conditions of fields and things that our kids are going to have the opportunity to play on for
Yeah, it's
ever.
Yeah,
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
very exciting.
So I'd be curious at some future meeting to learn a little more detail about what's being done with the East Side Middle Schools, Chehalia, Pacific, and Frontier, because they're not getting replaced, but I know they're getting improvements.
Yeah.
Uh,
We have that documentation we could share with you.
Yeah,
of
just
all the
share it.
scopes. There's a ton of work that's happened at all those. I know we have tons of detail that could share not only those ones, but all the sites, the capital
Yeah.
renewal projects that we've done.
It'd be nice to see that and to share that with others as well. I did have some neighbors ask me what was going on at Harmony, just to the west of the building.
Oh, we're doing a parking lot expansion there
Okay,
at Harmony, and then also at Pacific.
excellent.
We added another row of parking, because they get pounded there on the parking.
Well, the parent pickup is a line, just like it is at any school. But thank you.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Alan.
I'll work with Sue and we'll get that out to you in the next couple days.
Sounds good.
That's it.
We have to form, we don't have to, it's not a formal board meeting.
We are done for the
I
night.
can call for adjournment. We're adjourned.
Just a-